So then we are back with more understanding from the time of the second tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end period, Mashiyach the prophet, the 61st chapter. Then there is a layer of understanding over there of the holy cities of the Mashiyach then returning. And then let's evaluate what the Mashiyach has said regarding then the layer of the Gentile rulership. So from the Holy of Holies, the Mashiyach then spoke with Yohanan while he was in the first holy city and served as the example for the other 7 cities, where then we begin our reading regarding then the time where then those places would become then the 7 places from where vengeance would come in the future. So then, from this viewpoint, what has the Mashiyach said regarding the economy? Because it's the economy of the entire world. The Mashiyach has pointed Gelah 1:8, known as Revelation 1:8. Revelation 1:8 pertains to our time. Why? Because when you begin to read the words of the Mashiyach from the Holy of Holies, he said, from the past, he said these words from the past regarding an event of the future. So when we begin our understanding from the Holy of Holies viewpoint, the viewpoint of the Mashiyach, we must understand timing then does not count. So then the Mashiyach spoke with Yohanan roughly 100 years after his ascension. The Mashiyach then, he went up roughly 5032. So 100 years later, 5132, he gave those understandings regarding then tabernacling. Then he spoke during this time then regarding the time of restoration. Why do we understand as restoration? Because he said, come out of them, my people, so you then won't be destroyed with them. He's explaining a time of continuation of the second tabernacle services. However, he is explaining from a viewpoint after then this system would become available. But then let's understand why the Mashiyach said what he said. Because it was a very critical point of no return. The Mashiyach is always the wisest, and then we must understand the content and the concept of the entire understanding. So then, after 2009, the time of the seat is gone. 1,000 years given to Nahashatan, where then the seat, that's where then the facet of devil was known. But there is no more devil. His facet has changed from devil deceit to dragon. Because the system is coming from the east, coming from the Pacific, and then it's a system where people can truly be wealthy. And it's not through deceit, it's through real mathematics. But then the price is you have to be your own CEO, you have to be your own banker, you have to be your own investor, and you have to be responsible. So then, the Mashiyach stated, and the freighters of the earth. Obviously, the Mashiyach then is explaining from a time where then the Chinese system would be already implemented. So prior of this time, we understand the system is coming, but then the nations are already preparing themselves. When it comes, it's going to be absolutely people day and night in the system. Some of them, they won't rest. And if so, they're going to be resting the very bare minimum. And people are going to be continuously in the system. But then the Mashiyach, he spoke, come out of them, my people, because you have to return and do your duties. Continuation of the tabernacling. So then whatsoever Mashiyach spoke in the 61st chapter then would become completed. It must be done. So then, as far as what should people then invest, let's say, if a realm or country is finding itself then with surplus of taxation, what should they be doing? The Mashiyach already gave the answer. The Mashiyach pointed of a system coming. He did explain the system via freighters. When you understand, and the freighters of the earth would be then in charge, from Gelah 1:8, he's explaining the very important people taking leadership. No longer governments. The governments must line themselves up with the freighters. So then, since we understand the Chinese system is coming, and then what would be the best choice of making decisions based from this understanding and the surplus of taxes? The Mashiyach spoke of transportation, freighters, trucks, and the only link that there is then with freighter and taxation is taxation, isn't it? Because thus far, no country is taxing instantly. Every time there is a label printed, tax must be instantly deducted. So then, we understand China is then the factory of the planet. When you understand of a huge factory, you understand first comes then raw materials. Then you understand energy. So then, when a country or a realm is found with surplus of taxes, what would be the best answer based on what the Mashiyach has said? It must be linked with transportation. So we take then the final understanding where the Mashiyach then explained, and we retrieve from it understanding steps of formation. If we do this in a very obvious way, because the Mashiyach is obvious, he does not speak in complicated language. He is explaining these errors because people of himself, those are revealed. So he doesn't have to lie. Neither deceit, neither cheat. He meant what he said, and he said what he meant. So freighters. What is then the most important section of the word related with freighting? China, Singapore. Those are the busiest ports on the planet. What do we understand of factory? Understand of raw materials. Shouldn't you be thinking then, evaluating with the Chinese government what they would wish of having as far as mining is concerned? It's kind of obvious. Then when you combine their agenda with the realm's agenda, then you begin to line up also with freighters. Then you have to find transportation of mining, and then comes energy or coal. Because we don't find in the scripture control of the environment. You can read as much as you want. When you read from the scandalized scripture, oh, God would destroy those who destroy the earth. Wrong translation. He was speaking of layers of understanding. Because they had the world of themselves during the time taking care of tabernacling. Those destroying those layers of understanding related with the world of tabernacling would then be punished. It's true, autumn feast. He's not speaking of environment. If he was speaking of the environment, he would be layering with Gelah or Revelation. But there is not a reference regarding then the earth and taking care of the earth. It was the wrong translation. But we do find, obviously, a person is not going to throw garbage in the ocean. You're not going to throw garbage in the river. You're not going to burn forests indiscriminately. But usage of coal should be used because brings development. And there is not a section in Gelah where you find then protection of the environment because it's not part of it. So then, explaining these areas, then mining and then energy, then you begin to line up the government with what's coming in the future. Such as the system is coming related with mining, then the system is coming related with transportation. When we reach the top, the Mashiyach explains then the freighters of the earth. So then we take the word of the Mashiyach as on top, and gradual then we retrieve it from, obviously, and then find the answers for our time. That's why we understand then the nations of the Pacific lining up themselves with it. And very important pointing also, because when the system comes, nations should have at least 6 digits placed aside for investments. It's a very clean area of investment, but then it's going to generate parcels. As they earn those numbers in the system, and it's not complicated. Try to understand these. The middleman makes it complicated. There are people who invest in their entire lives of earning, and these scoundrels are absolutely mesmerizing the people with this complicated jargon of stupidity, where then when the system comes, simply gives you a list of what you want to invest, and then you pick your product. You think, oh, this product is going to be then sold, let's say 100,000 pieces of it. You invest your money in it, and at the end of the month you get a tiny share of it. However, depending upon how much you invest, there is a calculation that goes on over there and then returns to you. Obviously. But not only a product. You have 100,000 products or 900,000 products plus where you can invest. Then you begin to understand, and as you earn, it's going to generate parcels. You want to buy pens, you want to buy a shirt, you want to buy your shoes. Came straight from the factory in China. Then generates a parcel. Then working with the freighters, make sure every time there is a label printed, then the country deduct the taxes. Because when the system becomes available, it's going to be confidential. The government can't go in the system. They can do trade with the system, but they can't nose around somebody else's system. Each individual is going to become a banker and an investor at the same time. The government can't do anything about it. Simply can't. But as those parcels are generated, then they have a deal with the freighters every time there is a label printed, then taxes are deducted. So then the government, though they are in line with the freighters at the same time they are receiving. Then they have to target those areas of mining where the roads would be most likely, ports, where they should have more ports because it relates with freighters of ships. So then you lined up with what the freighters they would want in the future. Because the Mashiyach already gave the answer at the end of it. It is rock solid. And then, as the Mashiyach explained, so then this is the way people should invest their money, or their funding, or their taxes. And then obviously along with it, thinking of fuel. How much crude, or how many then number of crude tankers should come, and what kind of a fuel depot around the country should have near the ports. Because we have to have this understanding, as the parcels they become then quadruple or more, in a very short time is going to have a lot of demand for fuel. You don't have only an aircraft coming every 2 days, you have then an aircraft coming every day because of the number of the investments done, and then those are in turn turned to funding, and funding turned to packages, packages then turn into labels, government then is earning, people are receiving their packages, but then you have a multiple number of ships and aircrafts coming through where they have to have space. And then you have to think of fuel. Not only these, freighters, then they have the responsibility also delivering freights to those islands in the Pacific. They have to have some sort of a system over there. You know, like during the time of the Second World War, they had to have, you know, those land strips, those rough land strips and the such, because they have to deliver the packages. And then, obviously, has to have a fuel depot so they can refuel the aircraft. Or then the ship. So then we are already lining up with what the Mashiyach has said. Because the Mashiyach already said the end of it. So then we understand the end of it from the Holy of Holies, and then we simply retract from there, and then we understand the steps of formation. It couldn't be any simpler. Because the Mashiyach is not complicated. So please stay tuned. Much more coming up.